Hurricane Sandy has caused chaos to the U.S. presidential election, with rallies cancelled and early voting disrupted. But it's the economic storm over the last few years which is worrying the electorate. RT's Marina Portnaya looks at criticism thrown at the two major candidates over their links to the rich who are still hogging the wealth of the nation.
As RT's up-close U.S. election coverage continues this week, we turn our attention to domestic issues concerning voters. Now, U.S. presidents have historically referred to America as an exceptional nation, a land of opportunity where one can work hard and over time climb the proverbial economic ladder. But 1 year ago, that myth was busted when Occupy Wall Street activists camped out here in Zuccotti Park, igniting a nationwide grassroots movement protesting corporate greed, wealth inequality, and an eroding middle class. Today, the fact is, the U.S. gap between rich and poor has never been wider. An unprecedented amount of Americans are sliding down that proverbial ladder, while the top 1% earn an average annual income of $24 million. Enough to bet on both horses running in the nation's biggest political race. It's the most expensive political playoff in U.S. history, a competition for the country's most powerful position.
One of the things I suspect Governor Romney and I probably agree on is let's come back to something the president and I agree on.
No matter who wins the 2012 election, America's 99% movement will be left with a 1% president.
Regardless of who we vote for, Wall Street wins. I mean, that's really one of the main messages, is that when we're casting our ballot, we see that we have these corporations giving so much money to candidates, and they can't be objective when it comes to the interests of the vast majority.
The bonus-loving industry that ignited America's economic crisis, real estate collapse, job hemorrhage, and foreclosure epidemic is also on track to break campaign donation records for the 2012 presidential election.
Each election cycle, each 4 years, it costs significantly more than it did 4 years ago. So running for president of the United States is now a $500 million undertaking. You need $500 million to credibly run for the president of the United States. And you're going to raise that from large corporations and wealthy individuals.
In the case of Mitt Romney, wealth attracts wealth. The Republican candidate has a reported net worth of $200 million. And according to the Center for Responsive Politics, the top 8 financial contributors to Romney's campaign are Wall Street banks, with employees from Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Morgan Stanley rounding out the top 3.
At this defining moment, change has come to America.
In 2008, Barack Obama became the largest beneficiary of Wall Street backing in U.S. election history, receiving more than $42 million from the finance, insurance, and real estate sectors.
It's hard to believe that smart, rational guys in big companies with huge research departments and a real understanding of the society are going to give that much money and expect nothing in return. So their donation is probably not a charity.
Since becoming president, Obama's Justice Department hasn't prosecuted one person in connection to the 2008 financial collapse. On the other hand, top executives from JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and General Electric were recruited to work in the White House.
What we have cemented into place is a system of legalized bribery. Public elected officials are, in essence, corporate employees. You know, the flagrant sort of corruption, the ability of this small, rapacious class of corporate oligarchs to write the laws, write the legislation, create a two-tiered system, this ultimately is going to implode.
According to a 2012 Harris poll, the majority of Americans see Wall Street executives as dishonest and overpaid, with an overwhelming amount of citizens in support of tougher regulation. An overhaul the Occupy Wall Street movement began championing last year as millions of Americans flooded the streets.
This is what a police state looks like!
Thousands facing brutal arrests to protest Wall Street greed, economic inequality, and corporate influence over U.S. politics.
Stop electing!
As Election Day draws near, Occupy activists say both candidates have pandered to their financial donors and successfully ignored the biggest American grassroots movement to be seen in decades.
We see little difference between the two parties. They're both basically imperialist parties. And I think that one thing that Occupy can really do is expose how the democratic system as we have it right now is basically a sham.
The political system is so broken in so many ways that the reason that we continue to come out in the streets and ring the alarm bells around economic injustice and economic situation in our country is because, people aren't doing their job.
Millions of Americans will soon be heading to the polls, lacking support for either major candidate, but voting against the one they like least. However, with Wall Street successfully cementing strong ties to both presidential runners, some may wonder if the winner of this election has already been declared. Marina Portnaya, RT, New York.